So, Claude, thank you for coming down and chatting to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first thing I really wanted to talk to you about was your academy. Just been down there, looks great. You must be really proud of what you've built here and the players you get coming down.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's 2022 and I came here in, I think when I first came and looked at the Els Club property was probably 2007. And I mean, if we look at, you know, what's behind us and look at all these buildings, there was nothing here. And, you know, I think we, you know, when you're a part of what's going on in Dubai, if you've spent any time here, it can sometimes all seem really, really normal. But, you know, to think that, you know, the clubhouse wasn't here, we were standing in the middle of a desert in 2007, and, you know, you saw the master planned development, you know, what it was going to be, but to see what it's become, and to not only see what the academy has become, but what the Els Club has become, you know, it is quite remarkable. But, you know, from an academy standpoint, I moved here in May of 2008, and you know, it was a big move to come over here. I lived here for 3 years, and we had this idea that we wanted to try and do something different. We just didn't want to have the regular kind of academy. Yes, that, you know, every club here in Dubai has one, but we wanted to try and do something different, and we wanted to try and do everything that we did based around player development, you know, developing golfers, but also developing players. And you know, we're very proud of what we've done, and you know, I have an amazing team here, and you know, even though I lived here for somewhat of a short time, only 3 years, if you look at what's come out of that, you know, Justin Parsons, when I moved here in 2008, JP was teaching over at the Monty. I hired Justin. You know, he worked for me. He was my number 2 for 3 years. And then when I left, you know, JP worked, you know, I think for another 6-7 years. And then he moved to the United States and now works at Sea Island and coaches there. It's one of the premier resorts in the world. And, you know, JP now probably works with 7 or 8 players on the PGA Tour. And, you know, I'm very proud of that. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that we haven't, the other thing I love about what we've been able to do here is, I think JP and I, when we started this, we created not only an academy, but a culture of developing players. And we haven't really had a lot of turnover in the staff. The instructors that we do have tend to come, and they're not transient. They're not with us for a year and then they're at another club here in Dubai. I mean, they tend to stay, and the guys that tend to leave and go on and do, you know, great things. Richard Sheridan worked for us for a number of years here in Dubai when I was here, and now Richard is the director of instruction at the Olympic Club in the United States in San Francisco, one of the iconic old school country clubs. They've had major championships there. So we're really, really proud of that.
Absolutely. When you first started this, it must have seemed a bit of a risk, because Dubai wasn't what it was now. You come here.
I mean, I moved here in May of 2008. Yeah. You know, the global economic crash happened not long after that. Yeah. If you look at our academy building had already been designed. It was just going to be a 3-studio bay like all the other ones. And, you know, I remember our GM at the time here, Thomas Ruby, who's one of my dear friends, I said, listen, we need to add on a gym. We need to add on a developmental part of this. And he was like, do you have any idea how much that's going to cost? Do you have any idea how long that's going to take? It's going to delay opening. And I said, listen, if we just do what everyone else is doing, what's the point? And so, you know, we delayed opening. You know, the guys at Sports City, you know, Khalid, believed in the vision we had, which was to build a facility that could, you know, really set us apart. And, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that, you know, almost, you know, 10, 11 years later, almost every academy here in Dubai now has a gym component, has a fitness component. And so what we wanted to try and do was make this as much of a learning developmental facility. And I think we've done that. And I look at, you know, we now have, I think, what do we have? 7 instructors and 2 full-time fitness guys. I'm really proud of that.
And your philosophy of golf, particularly the way people play the game, swing the club, how does that sort of get implemented into the coaches down below you?
Well, I think one of the things that I learned from my dad, and he learned from his father, is we're trying to teach people to play golf.
Yeah.
We're not trying to teach golf to people. A lot of people, I think, historically have said, listen, this is golf, and we're going to teach this to you. And we've always taken much more of a individual, holistic approach where, listen, we're going to take what you have and what you do as an individual and teach you how to play golf, as opposed to say, listen, this is golf, this is what it means. And so, that's why the fitness component has been a huge part. Part of working with golfers and working with athletes is trying to figure out what they can and can't do. That's why we've pushed all into, the physical screening element, to the fitness element, to try and figure out whether you're a 25 handicapper, or whether you're a 10 handicapper, or whether you're an elite golfer trying to play. You've got to figure out what you can and can't do as a player. And, we're then going to try and say, okay, based off of what you can do, this is what we're going to try and get you to do. And hopefully there's some things that we can show you physically and, instruction-wise that can help you change as a player. But it is kind of the same approach that I see year in and year out with the touring professionals that I'm lucky enough to work with. They all have teams of people that work with them. They have a golf team, they have a fitness team, they have a rehab and recovery team. And so if you look at a professional golfer, regardless of what tour they're playing on, they are going to have a team of people around them. And the best players in the world at the very, very high end, the people that are in the top 10 in the world, the people that are winning major championships, they have an entire staff. They have nutritionists, they have chefs. So I think the modern professional golfer has become much more like a tennis player. They have a team of people that travel with them. And what we've tried to do is say, listen, even though you're only at this handicap range, or you're only a junior golfer and you're trying to get to the next level, these are the things that the best players in the world are doing. How can we do that and implement that? So it is more about, for us, developing players, and it is more about us teaching you as a player how to play the game of golf, as opposed to teaching golf to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the last 2 decades, there's been the introduction of TrackMan, and obviously the pros you mentioned there, they all have them on the range.
Well, I think everybody has, in 2022, we are in the information age. And, being able to understand what you do, being able to measure what you do. I think we're in a fascinating time in golf instruction to where, we have launch monitor technology, we have force plate technology, we have 3D technology, and then we have all the technology available to capture on-course data. But I think the art of coaching and the art of what we do is that technology is readily available, right? You can go out and buy a launch monitor. You can go out and buy a motion capture to try and figure out what your body does. You can go out and buy something that tells you how your weight is being distributed. Anybody can do that. I'll grab that from you. Yeah, thank you. But it's what you do with that information that is really, really important.
Do you think the introduction of this technology sometimes has made it a bit too complicated for the high handicap or the mid handicap?
No, I think a lot of, like anything, Carl Morris, who's, one of the really, really leading kind of golf and sports psychologists in the UK. I was on his podcast recently, and he has a great phrase, information rich, knowledge poor.
Yeah.
And information is readily available, data is readily available, but it's what you do with the information that you're gathering. So what we try and do from an instruction standpoint is use all of the technology that is available today, but then say, okay, this is what you do, we know this is what you do, and this is the plan of attack that we're going to use to help you get better. Because it's very easy to just take data, get someone's launch monitor information and say, listen, this is what you're doing with the golf club. Great, now what? And I think the art of teaching and coaching is to say, listen, this is what you do. We know you do this. We're not guessing. We know you swing the golf club this way, right? And here's the information and the data that, you know, a $30,000 launch monitor is telling you what to do. But this is what we're going to do to help you improve and to help you get better.
Yeah, totally.
And again, that's the art of coaching and instruction. And what I always talk to my team about here is we don't want to be data collectors. We just don't want to be a bunch of people that are just collecting data on what golfers are doing. We want to collect the data, and then we want to say, okay, here is the plan of attack to help you get better. And I think, I have a great leader in the team here, Jamie McConnell. I think Jamie McConnell is one of the best golf instructors on the planet. I would put Jamie up against any of the kind of household names in golf instruction. I think he's one of the best golf instructors in the world. Jamie could easily leave here tomorrow and go ply his trade on the PGA Tour, on the LIV Tour, on the European Tour, on the Asian Tour, on the LPGA Tour, and become someone that everybody in golf knows. He's that good. And so when you have a leader of a team like that, I only, unfortunately, am able with my schedule to come here once a year. But I talk to Jamie pretty much sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes definitely on a weekly basis. I mean, in the, 11 years that I've been gone from the academy, I did the same thing. I left in 2011, almost over a decade ago. I talked to Justin Parsons when he was director of instruction. I talked to JP as much as I talked to Jamie. It's a culture.
When you chat to these guys, do you share ideas about the golf?
Sure, I'm talking to them about my experiences. I'm talking to them about what I see. I'm talking to them constantly about what I'm working on with the players that I work with that are at the highest level, so that there's a trickle down effect, so that Jamie knows what I'm working on with Dustin Johnson. I just started working with Brooks Koepka again after a couple of year absence to talk to Jamie about the process of going back to work with Brooks, what we're working on, because then he can take that and he takes that information and then he says, okay, how can we help golfers here at the Els Club, at the CH3 Performance Golf Game? How can we take that information that I'm working on tour with players, how can we use that to help golfers here improve and get better?
You mentioned Jamie there and your father earlier. Have there been any other people in your life that have had such a massive impact on your coaching and your development as an instructor? Yeah,
I mean, listen, I'm incredibly lucky to grow up in the family that I was lucky enough to grow up in. I feel like I'm, the Harmon family from a golf instruction standpoint. We've done a lot of things. It started with my grandfather. My grandfather was, an amazing instructor. He was also an amazing player. I mean, he won the Masters in 1948. To have a grandfather that has a green jacket. Obviously everybody knows who my dad is, but my dad has 3 brothers. They're all golf instructors. So, people have spoken about my family as a coaching dynasty, and I take that very seriously. I feel like I'm part of something. I feel like I'm part of something that's bigger than myself, and I feel like my job as a member of the Harmon family and as a member of the Harmon kind of teaching family is to add my patch to the quilt of this big giant piece of instruction. And I feel like I'm part of the, when I go out on tour and work with tour players and go to a major championship or walk onto a range at a professional event, I feel like I'm wearing the Harmon jersey, and I'm proud to wear that. And I feel like there's a tremendous amount of responsibility that goes with that I have to continue the legacy of what came before me. And I talk to our guys a lot about that. You know, my role here when I come over here, I spend the majority of my time with the team. Yeah, I give a lot of lessons when I'm here, but if I'm giving a lesson here when I'm over at the academy at the Els Club, a member of my instruction team here is in the lesson with me, and I want them to be involved in that. I sit in on all of the instructors' lessons here. Jamie does a great job at managing my schedule when I'm here. Pretty much every day a different member of staff picks me up, you know, from where I'm staying and drives me into work. Now, that sounds really simple, but it's an opportunity for me to spend time with the staff. And that's what I think is really important is, I think one of the reasons why we have been so successful, why we are, in my opinion, the leader in golf instruction, not only in the UAE and in Dubai, but in this region and in the world, is we've created a culture, and it is a team culture. You know, I talk to our guys a lot about that, about the team. You know, pretty much every day that I'm here, a different member of the staff, you know, we go and we have lunch. We're on monthly Zoom calls when I'm in the US where the team, you know, we get together on a Zoom call and we just talk. We talk about, hey, talk to me about what you guys are seeing in your lessons. Talk to me about what because I can't be here, right? But the great thing about technology now is you're able to kind of, you know, zoom in and sit and talk to these guys. So, you know, I love the guys here. I'm very, very proud of all of the instructors on the team here. We went out last night and had a great, you know, dinner with the team and stuff. And it's always something I really, really look forward to because I feel like they're as much a part of what we're doing as I am. You know, the two guys that have worked, you know, and ran the academy since I've left, Justin Parsons and Jamie, to me, they're like brothers. I mean, I think of them like members of my family. You know, Justin Parsons, you know, JP and I started this academy. You know, when I look at what JP's gone on to do, you know, from a kid, you know, from Northern Ireland that was, you know, given, you know, 8 hours, 10 hours of lessons a day at the Montgomery back in the day to be able to walk on a range at a PGA Tour event, at a major championship and see Justin Parsons there, to watch JP do what he's done and have players win on the PGA Tour, win all over the world. You know, I'm so proud of that. And, you know, when I look at the success that Jamie has, it's just, it really is something that is important to me. And like I said, I think of, you know, Justin and Jamie like brothers. I really do. I know my dad feels like they're as much a part of our family as I am.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you look back at your career and your colleagues as well, what do you think is like the hardest part of being a coach? The biggest challenge that you guys face on, I suppose, a daily basis, really? You
know, my dad told me once, if you're going to work with elite players, sometimes it's what you don't say that is more important than what you do say. I try and instill with our team here to be a coach, probably more than an instructor. Yeah. And, you know, I learned that from my dad. My dad learned that from my grandfather. There is an art to developing players. There is an art to coaching. There is an art to understanding what a player can and can't do. There's an art to not just teaching everybody the same thing. I'm very proud of the fact I know my dad is as well. There are some incredibly successful golf instructors around the world that have a very specific system. They want players to swing the golf club a certain way. They have a system. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just really glad that we don't have that we don't teach everybody the same thing, that we don't teach a system, that we look at players as individuals and try and figure out what we can do as instructors and coaches to help them improve their game and treat them individually.
You mentioned Brooks earlier as well, winner again. Known as a big hitter, hits it far off the tee, and you've got guys like Bryson chasing distance. When you see these guys just try and rip it as hard as they can, do you think the shift away, the focus away from the short game? Is that something?
No, I mean, listen, you can't play golf competitively if you can't chip and putt. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever side of the distance debate you're on, we are in a speed and distance age. there are a lot of people in golf that think that that's bad for golf. I really don't. There's an art to hitting the golf ball further. There's an art to distance. I'm excited and happy that athletes are starting to play golf. You know, I look at our junior development program, our elite program that we have with the GEMS Academy and stuff last night. We're on the range with them, and then we're in the gym with them. And we're trying to get them to be athletes first and golfers second. And I think that is the direction golf is going at the competitive level. You've got to be an athlete first. I think golf for a long time was seen, when I was growing up, I'm 53, for a long time golf was seen as, when I was growing up, golf wasn't cool. The fact that my dad was a golf instructor, I didn't tell anybody my dad gave golf lessons, because golf wasn't cool. But we are seeing so many more athletes now at a young age choosing golf as the pathway. They're playing football, they're playing cricket, they're playing rugby, they're playing other sports. In America, they're playing American football, they're playing basketball, they're playing baseball, they're playing hockey, they're playing all these myriad of other sports. But they're saying at 16, 17 years old, okay, golf is the sport I'm going to choose now.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because, obviously Tiger Woods has played a huge part in that. Tiger changed golf forever. He was the first real kind of athlete first speed, the way that Tiger changed his physique from, the early 90s when my dad first started working with him, when he used to, come for golf lessons and stuff. He was skinny and stuff. And so Tiger made golf seem more like a sport. And I think more and more golfers are seeing golf as a pathway for their athletic endeavors. And it's definitely exciting to see.
Do you think there will come a stage in the future that people will have to start limiting the ball?
I know there is a segment of the population that thinks that. I don't see the average golfer getting any better. I've been giving golf lessons now for, I'm 53. I've been teaching golf for half my life. And the average golfer isn't hitting it any further. The ball doesn't help the average golfer. The ball helps the tour player, but you give the average person that drives to and from work every day, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen's Formula One race car, they can't drive it at the speed those guys do because they don't know how to drive. We can go over to the Dubai Autodrome, or we can go over to the Abu Dhabi racetrack and say, all right, here is Max Verstappen's F1 car, get it around the track in under 2-point-something minutes, and they're going to crash the car because they don't know how to drive. So we tend to look at golf from a distance standpoint. We tend to focus on the less than 1%. So people look at golf and they look at how far the golf ball goes, and they watch tour players hit the golf ball. They see golf courses and they see guys hitting driver wedge into a golf hole that's 400 and something yards, where they're hitting driver 5-iron and stuff. But you give the best players in the world the best technology, they're going to utilize that technology. But I don't see the average person that is going to go out and play here on a Friday afternoon at the Els Club. They can buy the same driver that Dustin Johnson uses. They can get the same shaft that Justin Thomas uses. They can get the same ball that Rory McIlroy uses. But it doesn't help them hit the golf ball 340 in the air like the best players in the world do. So if it was just technology, right? If technology was the answer, and if technology was really making golf easier, as the distance naysayers say, then everybody on the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the LIV Tour, the Champions Tour, everybody would hit the golf ball the exact same distance because the equipment's the same. You can go buy Rory McIlroy's driver. You could go get Rory McIlroy's shaft. you could go get Rory McIlroy's head, and you could go driver head, and you could go get Rory McIlroy's golf ball. And Rory can hit that 330 in the air. Same analogy to the F1 car. You put Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, he's going to drive it the fastest in the world because he's the best driver, right? But you give someone else that car that doesn't have that skill, they're not going to be able to do it as fast, and they're not going to be able to not crash the car. So I think the distance debate, in my opinion, I think there's a worrying trend in golf that we want, for some reason, people want golf to be the only thing in life that doesn't evolve, right? We want golf to be the way it was when Ben Hogan played, to be the way it was when Sam Snead played, to be the way it was when Arnold Palmer played, to be the way it was when Jack Nicklaus played. I don't know any other sport that spends so much time looking and talking backwards. We are a part of a sport that is constantly talking about what people did in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the golden era. The golden era in my opinion, the golden era of golf is today. The golden era is watching what Rory McIlroy is able to do with the golf ball. The golden era is watching what Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and Jon Rahm and Cam Smith and DJ and Brooks and Bryson and this younger generation. This, to me, is such an amazing era in life, but there is a segment of the golfing population, there is a segment in the governing bodies that we want golf to be like it was. It's like the Truman Show. It's like we want golf to be the way it was when Ben Hogan played. I mean, if you go to most golf courses, right, there's all these iconic black and white photos of old school. If you go to a Formula One race, if you go into the corporate hospitality, there might be a few pictures of old cars, but nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see the old guy with the glasses driving around. They want to see what's happening today. And we have so many great champions playing on tours all over the world. And I don't want to be a part of a sport that is constantly trying to look backwards. You know, Frank Nobilo was a great player. He commentated for Golf Channel for years. He used to sit on the set when Golf Channel would do their live froms, live from the Masters, live from the PGA. And after he left Golf Channel, he said, I used to always say to the producers, half the show, an hour, 2-hour show, half the show is about the past. It's about what happened on this course in 1952. It's about who won the US Open in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, as opposed to showcasing the great players of today. We are so lucky from a golf standpoint to have the players we have playing this sport. I mean, if you look at guys like DJ, if you look at guys like Rory, if you look at guys like Justin Thomas, if you look at guys like Jon Rahm, if you look at all of the Cam Smith, I mean, the year that Cam Smith has had this year, to win the Players' Championship, to win the Open Championship. I mean, I was at the Open Championships this summer, and, to me, it was a foregone conclusion that Rory McIlroy was going to win that. I mean, you could just see it. You could feel it, right? It was Rory. I mean, you just knew it. I mean, it was just, and DJ was in one of the last groups, and I was like, man, if DJ could somehow make a run, post a score here. But in my mind, I'm saying, man, Rory's going to be tough to beat today. The way he played this year and the way he played this summer, and the way that Cam Smith played, the way that Cam Smith played on the back nine. I mean, to me, it's one of the great performances, that I've seen in a long time. And we are in such a rich vein of form with players playing all over the world.
And obviously, as you just spoke about, a breakout year, but especially for the women's game this year with massive increased prize purses and more eyeballs on the game, sponsorship. Just a word on the women's sport.
Yeah, I think, listen, what LIV Golf has come in and done in 2022 is there are a lot of people that say that it is basically fractured professional golf, right? But if you look at what, in a very short period of time, LIV started in June, and they just finished their season. They had 8 tournaments. And if somebody had told you at the beginning of June that in November of 2022, the golf landscape would look like it looks today. From a professional standpoint, if somebody had told you in June of last year that the Aramco ladies tournament in Saudi next year would have a $5 million prize fund, they'd say, well, where's that money going to come from, right? And so there are a lot of people that think that the influx of money that LIV has brought into the professional game is bad. But I would argue that why has the PGA Tour made all the changes that they've made it? Why is the women's game now starting to be, the women's tournament in Saudi next year will have the exact same prize fund as the men? I mean, when has that ever happened? When did we ever think that would be happening? And I do think that the women's game is getting stronger. There are so many great players playing, women's golf, at the professional level from all different nationalities. There's so many players coming out of Asia now. There's so many players coming out of India now. There's great European ladies players, and there's great American. I think the professional game of golf, whatever side of the aisle you're on, whether you're for what LIV has done or anti what LIV has done, I see more positives coming out of that than I do negatives.
You still coach women players?
I teach two girls on the LPGA Tour, Marina Alex and, Pajari Ananakarn. They both have won. Marina won earlier this year on the LPGA Tour. Pajari won last year. I was at the Women's US Open this summer, and it's great to go out and watch and see. I mean, because I spend so much time in the men's game, a lot of the women that you see, I don't get an opportunity to see them up close. But to be able to go to the Ladies US Open this year at Pinehurst, and to get an opportunity to see Nelly Korda for the first time. I've seen her play golf on television, but I've never really seen her hit balls in person. I got to stand at the back of the range and watch Nelly do her warm-up one day, and I watched her hit golf balls for 30 minutes. I mean, it's unbelievable the way she swings the golf club. A lot of the Korean golfers to watch, Sun Hyun Park. I think Sun Hyun Park has one of the best golf swings I've ever seen. In Ji Chun, all of these great players from Korea, to actually be able to go in person as a golf instructor, but as a golf fan, and be able to sit and watch some of these golf swings. I mean, I think the Ladies Tour, the LPGA Tour, they have some of the best golf swings technically that you could find anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I went to Japan last week for the LPGA event, and it was the first proper time I've been up close with women golfers, and to watch me, like, these girls, so good.
Yeah, they're great.
They just don't get appreciated.
They're great golfers. Yeah, and hopefully, with what the Aramco Series is doing next year in Saudi Arabia for the women at the tournament there, having a prize fund that equals the same prize fund as the men, a $5 million purse. I mean, that's unbelievable. And you can't have one without the other, right? You can't say that the money that LIV has brought to the men's professional game is bad, but if they're going to do the same thing and bring it to women's golf, which historically has had no investment, no real money, I think it's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Claude, thank you very much. Got a few quick fire questions. Favourite golf course in the world?
Sand Hills in Nebraska, and believe it or not, Cruden Bay, just outside of Aberdeen in Scotland. So 2. And Les Bordes in France. Fantastic. Those are my 3. And I love them as places, but it's also places. For me, golf is about people. And so when I look at golf courses and great golf courses, listen, I've been to some of the greatest golf courses on the planet. I've been to Augusta National, I've been to Pebble Beach, I've been to Cypress Point, I've been to all of these Seminole, I've been to all of these iconic golf courses. But the ones that stand out for me are places that I've been able to go to with people that I love and care about. And I've been lucky enough to go to those 3 golf courses with people that I enjoy playing golf with. To me, they're in great locations. Sand Hills in Nebraska is in the middle of nowhere. It's Ben Crenshaw and Bill Corr golf course, if we blindfolded you and dropped you in the middle of this golf course in the sandhills of Nebraska, I think you'd struggle to figure out where you were. You wouldn't know. There's no houses on the golf course. It's in literally the middle of nowhere. And I love the design aesthetic that Ben and Bill Corr do. Cruden Bay is a golf course that's north of Aberdeen. I spent a lot of time, lived in Scotland for a long time. It's not the best of the golf courses in Scotland, but I've played there so many times with so many friends and had so many great experiences there. It stands out. And then Les Bordes in France, again, a really cool experience, kind of off the beaten trail in France. Probably one that not a lot of people have gone to, but I love, the clubhouse is this old chateau, and I've been there with, some of my dearest, closest friends and spent long weekends there, and I just loved it. I loved the experience and loved the golf course.
Is there a golf course in the world that you want to go to that you haven't been to?
I think some of the stuff in New Zealand that you see, yes. I've never been to Bandon Dunes. Everybody that goes out there says that is magical. People that go to Cabot Cliffs, they say that is just kind of otherworldly. So yeah, there's loads of golf courses I haven't been to.
Do you think Rory will win a major next year?
I mean, you would think that Rory, every time he tees it up in a major championship, should win. I mean, he's just that good of a player. I think Rory's last major was in 2014 at Valhalla, the PGA. If you'd have told somebody in 2014 that Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy would have the exact same amount of majors, having, Brooks Koepka having just turned pro in 2012, 2013, and you say, yeah, Brooks is a two-time U.S. Open champion. He's a two-time PGA champion, and in 2022, he and Rory are going to have the exact same amount of majors. 2014, at this point, you probably would have thought that Rory would have gotten to 10. He's that good, and it's because Rory is that good, right? It is because Rory is such a great player. I mean, Rory is one of the players in 2022 that when he is on, when he is playing Rory McIlroy golf, I mean, he's almost impossible to beat. Dustin Johnson is very much in that vein. John Rahm can get into that vein. We've seen stretches where Jordan Spieth has gone on these runs. But yeah, listen, I have so much respect for Rory as a player. Off the golf course, I like Rory as a person. We were very lucky when we started the academy here in Dubai. It was right around the time that Rory McIlroy turned pro. And Justin Parsons is from Hollywood. They grew up, he and Rory went to the same, they were at the same club growing up. And I can still remember JP coming to me and saying, hey, you've heard about this kid, Rory McIlroy? I was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, would you mind if we gave him a place to hit balls and practice? And so Rory used to come to the academy here and practice. I remember watching Rory win his first golf tournament at the Dubai Desert Classic. So I've known Rory for a long time, and I am a huge, huge Rory McIlroy fan. I love the way he plays golf. I think he's one of the most curious and inquisitive and smart people. I think the way he gives interviews, he's a thinker. And he's a curious person, and I like that about him. But when you look at him play golf, I mean, Rory McIlroy is a favorite to win basically every tournament he tees it up in. That's how good, that is the talent that he has.
From Rory to high handicappers, the most common mistake you see in 20 plus?
I think the biggest single difference between good players and bad players is that I think the average golfer is obsessed with the direction and the curve of the golf ball, right? They're obsessed with the way the golf ball is moving, whether it's moving from left to right, or whether they're hitting snap hooks, whether they're hitting slices. But they don't really worry about the contact and the strike. And I don't really care which direction players hit the golf ball. I don't care if you slice it, if you hook it, fade it, draw it. It doesn't make a difference to me. To me, the most important thing is the quality of the strike. how the club interacts with the ball. And so, to me, which direction the golf ball goes, whether you're a drawer of the golf ball or a fader of the golf ball. I work with guys that draw it on tour. I work with guys that fade it on tour. I work with guys that can hit it, that tend to have a lower ball flight, some that have a higher ball. To me, it doesn't matter. But for the average golfer, the single most important thing is the quality of the strike. And I think if most regular golfers, recreational golfers, would focus more on hitting the golf ball solid consistently, day in and day out, as opposed to trying to hit draws, as opposed to trying to hit fades. I always say to golfers, if I could go to the first tee with you every time you played, and I had a magic wand or a genie bottle, and I could say, listen, I'm giving out 2 things today. If you tell me you want to hit draws today, I can guarantee you on every swing you make today, the golf ball is going to go left to right, or right to left. If you want to fade the golf ball, I can guarantee you everything's going to go left to right. I can't guarantee you the quality of the strike, but I can guarantee you the shape. Or I can't guarantee you the quality of the strike or the shape today, but I can guarantee you that every drive you hit, every long iron you hit, every mid, short, wedge, every shot you hit is going to be in the center of the club. Every iron swing you make is going to have a divot. You're going to hit the ball and then hit the ground in front of the ball, and the quality of the strike would be good. So I can guarantee you quality of strike today, I just can't guarantee you direction. Or I can guarantee you direction, I just can't tell you if you're going to hit it solid or not. Every single golfer, I think, would choose quality of strike. And I think most golfers, fundamentally, if they focused more on consistent contact, they would improve and play better.
Massively, yeah. And finally, early thoughts on next year's Ryder Cup?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on, what happens with the tours, with the governing bodies, with the whole LIV question. It's been refreshing to hear Jon Rahm's comments. It's been refreshing to hear Matt Fitzpatrick's comments about, hey, I think the best American players should be on the Ryder Cup team, and I think the best European players should be on the European Ryder Cup team. Jon Rahm is kind of been one of the few voices, in my opinion, of somewhat of a voice of reason to say, hey, listen, can't the Ryder Cup maybe be where we put all these differences aside, whatever side you're on? Everybody says the Ryder Cup is bigger than LIV, right? Is bigger than money, right? Well, if that's the case, then in my opinion, regardless of where you play, regardless of what tour you play on, the Ryder Cup should, in 2023, the Ryder Cup should have the best American team and should have the best European team. And, certainly from an American standpoint, unless he breaks his leg and blows out his back and forgets how to play golf in the next year, I can't imagine in 2023 Dustin Johnson isn't going to be one of the best American golfers on the planet. He is right now. Right? If there was a major tomorrow, right, regardless of what side of this PGA Tour LIV debate you're on, right? If there's a major tomorrow, the favorites are going to be, given the way players are playing right now, the favorites are going to be the usual cast of characters, right? And just because some of them have gone to LIV, just because Brooks and DJ and Cam Smith have made the choice to go to LIV, you can't tell me that if there's a major tomorrow at Augusta National, Cam Smith isn't going to be one of the favorites. I'm going to put money on Cam Smith being in one of the last 3 groups if the Masters is played tomorrow. I'm going to put money right now on Rory McIlroy being in one of the last few groups at Augusta National. I'm going to put money that Jon Rahm is going to have a chance to win. I'm going to put money that Brooks, given his current form, given the way that DJ has played in the last 3 months, he's going to be one of the favorites. And I think it's crazy that on both sides that everybody can't find a solution. And unfortunately, I had my dad on my podcast earlier, and unfortunately right now I think what's happening on the PGA Tour and LIV is very similar to what's happening in politics around the globe. As opposed to trying to come together and find solutions, everybody's just going further apart and digging in. And that's not working, in my opinion, from a political standpoint, certainly not in my country, America. The Republicans are going further in one direction and the Democrats are going further, and there is no more middle ground. There is no more ability to kind of hear someone else's opinion. And I think it will have an asterisk. I think if the Ryder Cup is played next year and players that are good enough to be on either team aren't able to qualify and aren't chosen, I think it will have an asterisk. And in my opinion, next year at Augusta National, if there's a champions dinner and 7 past champions who won the Masters long before any of this stuff happened. It's not like we're trying to exclude players from tournaments like the majors, right? Cam Smith is exempt into the majors until 2027. He did that before. He won the Open Championships this year long before he went to LIV, right? Dustin Johnson's exempt until 2025. Phil Mickelson, whether you like Phil, whether you don't like Phil, whether you like his comments, whether you don't like his comments. In his 50s, Phil won a major championship. He's exempt into the majors for 5 years. He's exempt into the PGA for, I think, until he's in his 50s. He's exempt for life into the Masters. He's a double lifetime exemption winner on the PGA Tour. He's won over 40 tournaments. DJ is exempt for life on the PGA Tour, right? And to tell people that they can't play in tournaments that they're exempt for, unless they want to change the criteria. So, yeah, I think it would be terrible for the Ryder Cup to not have the best players from America and the best players from Europe playing in it.
Claude, thank you very much for chatting to Worldwide Golf. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks.